Welcome to the RPG Podcast.
And we are live.
Oh, God, Patton!
Presented by SHEATH. A Time Wheel production.
Welcome, everyone, to the Robert Patton Global Podcast. Once again, I am very honored to be here with Raquel Pennington, UFC fighter. She's a local here in Colorado Springs, and we were just talking about injuries and how you deal with injuries. And we're in Colorado here. Are you allowed to talk about how you deal with injuries publicly?
Why not? Well, for one, being in Colorado, I hike a lot just to get out in nature. Smoke a little weed, eat some edibles, hang out.
Yeah.
Spend time with family. Yeah,
I see you out in the wilderness like all the time when you do posts on Instagram. You're fishing, hunting, hiking, hanging out.
Yeah. So being born and raised here, I just kind of grew up. I started hunting at the age of 7. My pompo taught us how to hunt, how to fish. So I'm just typical outdoors person.
What did you call him?
My pompo.
Okay, because mine was Papo.
Oh, really?
It's pretty close.
Mine is P-O-M-P-O.
Mine is P-A-P-O.
And then my Nana. So they've always just had us outdoors. My mom got us into hiking ever since I was young, and I do absolutely everything outdoors. So when I'm not living in the gym, I'm outside. And let me tell you, that's just like a reset to the soul.
Yeah, that seems to be a passion of yours. And like part of the podcast, we talk about success. We talk about what it takes to be successful, and part of that is resetting. You know, you got to go hard, train, prepare, but then the rest and recovery is amply important in life in general.
It's extremely important. You know, I think a lot of people, they get wrapped up in just being a professional athlete, and the way that we kind of say it is, I go from like just living life, and then I go 0 to 100 as soon as they call about a fight. Because I'm on vacation, I live life. I love to eat food, try all the different things. And I mean, do I love working out, and do I like being in the gym and staying in shape? I very much so do. But we always joke as far as my Mexi roll, because obviously it gets bigger, and that's how we know what I'm coming out of, like just living life, because that's my reset. It's not about just taking a couple days out of the gym and feeling better, or having the weekend off and feeling better. Like I actually have to just reset mentally and emotionally. And that's being away from the gym at those times, hanging out with my friends, my family, spending a lot of me time out in nature or traveling. So that's actually the reset for me.
Yeah, we all have our things. I mean, it's a marathon. For me, I work every day, 7 days a week. You know, obviously that's every day. And but I can't work all day every day. You know, I have to take time out of the day to take a hike. I live in this national forest area here.
Yeah, this is a sweet view.
Yeah, very sweet. And I'm very blessed with that. My mornings are out here drinking coffee and just staring up in the mountains, maybe reading, doing some breathing. I've been getting really into the Wim Hof Breathing Exercises. I'm sure you've heard of him, but are you familiar with the exercises at all, or do you? I'm
not familiar with it.
Yeah.
I've gone through different like breathing techniques and stuff. I wouldn't know what names to actually put to them. But let me tell you something. When you're not used to actually focusing on, there's a way to breathe when you're going through a fight and to be able to control things and work with getting the oxygen to go to your muscles and stuff. But when you're actually sitting there just trying to center everything and you're doing certain types of breathing, it's kind of exhausting.
Yeah, it's overwhelming the body with oxygen, and if you play around with it, you can really get into some interesting states of consciousness and energy. I was talking with a woman this weekend who does breath work, and she calls it like a superpower. And I agree, because of the experiences I've been having with it. Download the Wim Hof app. I'm not getting anything out of it. It's like fun in a way, and you get energized. It'll like wake you up. It's like a cup of coffee, and it's been bleeding over. I get like so much out of it. I'm doing some of the other techniques, which he's called the Iceman, and so he does ice baths, and so I've been doing that. And
those are always fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mental challenge just getting in and then staying in.
I think once you get past the mental part as far as like, for me, it's like the first minute and a half to 2 minutes. But as soon as you can get past that, I think the worst part is, because if I injure my hand or just my foot, I actually have to take an entire ice bath because I cannot just ice those areas. So the worst part of the initial ice bath is when my feet or my hands are freezing. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as you get past that, for me, it's super relaxing. And then the way it makes your body feel. Mm-hmm. I know that they have the cryotherapy, which, I mean, it's a fast version of an ice bath, and it feels 10 times better because you only freeze for about 3 minutes. But I would honestly say I like the actual ice bath. And then just the refreshing feeling about 20 minutes later after I thaw out.
Agreed. I actually took a cold shower before. It's kind of a ritual to do before a podcast these days, just to get pumped up. And I've done that cryotherapy also, and it's almost too easy. Yeah. You know, like you're out there before you really even start feeling it. And I don't know, I guess there are beneficial effects. I'm sure there are. Obviously there are. But it lasts longer from like an ice bath, I feel like.
I think we like the mental challenge too.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Man, it's like pain. You like pain? Get in an ice bath. Is your life too easy? I feel like a lot of people's lives in America are so soft and cushy that they don't challenge themselves or their body enough. They don't put enough stress on themselves. And we see them. Shit's getting crazy out there, you know, and I don't know what, you know, it's all attributed to. There's like many factors happening, but on a personal level, you know, I feel for me, putting myself through that makes like, and there's like nothing else stressful happening. Like it's a exercise in stress management, and when I'm done with that, like I can kind of handle anything.
You sound like me with yoga. Everybody's like, center your chi in yoga. It's so relaxing, but I'm stressed out the entire time through yoga. I absolutely hate stretching, for one, even though it's super like important and needed.
Well, maybe
and healthy.
You feel like you need to get out and do something. I don't know. Maybe you feel like you need to be moving.
I just feel like every muscle is going to tear when I'm going through yoga because I try to do it a little way too intense, I think. So I don't really know how to center my chi in yoga yet. So your ice baths sound like my yoga sessions. Although afterwards, I feel like just a brand new person.
Yeah.
Till the next session.
Yeah, because it's like the stress put on your body, and then the release, is like the moment, I guess, where you can appreciate what's going on around you. Thank you again for coming. And you brought Juan Gonzalez, the kickboxing coach.
Got Wonton here.
Yep. What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Good. I'm glad to be here. Haven't been on. Was the last time I was on? Was it 3 years ago?
It's been. This is the revamped, new and improved Robert Patton Global. It's on all the channels and stuff.
Gotcha.
You know, you grew up here in Colorado Springs, doing your wilderness thing, and you know, but at some point you became famous, like a celebrity, and how did that like affect you? You know, like how do you deal with that and mentally, and what do you kind of say to yourself, if anything?
It kind of becomes a lifestyle, you know. I mean, you get used to the transition of everything. People coming up to you all the time wanting photos. Just having that platform or something to reach out to people and be able to talk in a different way. For me, I've always wanted to be a professional athlete. I never thought in a million years it would be fighting, although I grew up beating my cousins. I grew up beating my cousins up all the time. So I think a part of me should have known that. But
well, it wasn't really a profession yet.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, it's a way of life. And I think for me it's a passion of mine. So, you know, I'm just waking up and I'm living my passion every single day, and I'm grateful and I'm blessed for that. And I just kind of keep the pressure off of myself. Like, you know, I mean, there's a huge spectrum to it, and I fight on the biggest platform that there is. Mm-hmm. But when I take that away, or when I take away how many people are actually viewing or paying attention to things, or life on social media, and I just continue to live in the life that I'm living every single day, I think that's what just kind of keeps me humble and keeps me sane, and it just keeps it enjoyable. Because it's easy to get wrapped up in this kind of life and to lose track of things, and then I don't know. I mean, I'm grateful for the cards that's been dealt to me, and so I just have fun with it.
Yeah, it was really cool to be from the outside in because I know Raquel before there was women in the UFC. I think she just handled going famous perfectly, and she's got an amazing story as far as like there was nowhere for her to go when she first started competing, in mixed martial arts as a woman, and then to see where she is now, and it's just awesome. And she uses it as a great platform to reach out to a lot of people. And no, I think she stayed humble throughout the whole time, and it's been great knowing her this whole time. And so many people I talk to are so excited. Like, oh my gosh, Raquel? And I'm like, yeah. And what's she like? I'm like, she's a normal person. She didn't change. Yeah, she didn't change in that, that period of, becoming super famous. But I have a question for you, actually, because I wasn't with you when you fought and when there was no crowd. How did that change? How was that for you? Because I know sometimes your biggest enemy is yourself. So what was it like
or my stage fright?
Your stage fright, yeah. Like, how was that?
It was exciting for me, actually. It felt like the Ultimate Fighter. So just being on there, the Ultimate Fighter was actually a bigger crowd, just given the fact that we had our teammates and we had the coaches, and then the production stuff was there. This time around, it was just like you had your corners. There was your opponent's corners, and then you had a few production in there and the judges and stuff. But other than that, for me, it felt like it was just a super relaxed environment. So I can go out there. I felt like I was going to the gym, and I just had another sparring partner with bad intentions. So I had a lot of fun. It brought back just a ton of memories. The way we were quarantined kind of felt the same way as being locked in the house. I mean, back then we weren't allowed to have magazines and TV and music and cell phones, so we didn't know anything that was going on outside of the Ultimate Fighter house. And this time around, like, we were stuck in the hotel room because of COVID, but I mean, we can still reach out to our everyday life, our family and stuff. But then it was just kind of that same thing where you got to focus on you and exactly what you were doing. So I had a blast. My nerves were completely at ease, and I mean, I think this time around was the first time that I really needed this reset, because, I mean, you for one, you've known the struggles that I've been through since 2016. I mean, just going through the ups and downs, haven't been able to catch a break, whether it was my health, injuries, whatever it was, just not being in the right mental state, emotionally, just not being in the best place. And I really struggled with fighting. And there was one point where I was just like, I kind of want to hang it up. I can't figure out how to get back to myself and feeling normal again. And this time around, I mean, I finally felt like myself. So it just amped up that motivation, and now I'm just excited to climb back to the top, and I understand where I belong again and having fun with it. So
you got to have fun with
yeah.
it. And yeah, the quarantine was a great reset for a lot of people. I find the goingness of life coming to a halt and getting to breathe for a second was...
We just get so wrapped up in an everyday life that I think people forget. I know it was a struggle for a lot of people, but there were some people that just genuinely needed a reset. And I mean, even probably you don't even realize how much you're doing every single day. I didn't realize like what an active life I had just because you're so used to it. And then when I got to reset in quarantine and kind of get things done that I've been wanting to get done but couldn't get done because I didn't seem to have the time or the energy after training, I mean, it was so fulfilling and rewarding for me that, I mean, it sucks what everybody has gone through and the struggles and people losing their loved ones or people getting sick and stuff. But on the flip side of things, there was like a lot of positive that, I mean, I can forever be grateful for on that.
Me too. And, thinking back, when I would have somewhere to go, something I had to do, I'd get this anxiety, and I'm like, I don't have the energy to deal with this. I'm like constantly going. I'm all like on a 10, all day, every day or whatever. And just even in my mind, if not my body, and the anxiety of thinking I had to go somewhere when we couldn't go anywhere, it was like, sweet.
It felt like a worldwide approved vacation in a sense. So it's like I didn't feel guilty for eating all the foods. I didn't feel guilty for not being at the gym because I knew I wasn't the only one. You know what I mean? Like, even though being a professional athlete and that's supposed to be my job, like nobody else can do it unless we were at home doing whatever. And I mean, Tisha and I, we turned our garage into a home gym.
Of course.
And so, I mean, we were doing certain workouts, but then it was just, we had so many home projects that we were pretty much getting our workout from doing all our landscaping and switching our yards around and everything that we wanted to do, that it was fun. I felt way better coming back into the gym.
Yeah, and you're refreshed, you're renewed, and we actually moved out here in April. So March had happened. We were looking during the quarantine, and it was kind of a bitch to get approved because they increased a lot of conditions and stuff. But we're doing well, and we got it done. And during the quarantine, we were also remodeling this house. It looked nothing like what it does now, and it was like kind of mandatory to stay home anyways. So and I think everyone was doing that. The lines at Home Depot were just out the door.
I know. Yeah. I live there every other day getting new stuff, and everybody was there.
Yeah. For whatever reason, Lowe's was like you could just walk in and walk out, but Home Depot they had it super strict with counts and whatnot. We're very blessed. I mean, I feel like I say that every day, and it's a beautiful thing. In fact, I was talking to my therapist yesterday, and he was like, I don't think you really need to see me anymore because things are going so well adjusted. I was in the Army, and I did a couple tours, saw a lot of dead people and whatever. I've been seeing a therapist since then, 2008, for 10 years. And sleep, I'm finally sleeping way better.
That's
not
good.
Perfect, but so much better.
Good.
Yeah. And I feel this sense of at ease. I think it might be my wife a little bit because she she did what she does with these dogs, and they come in and they're all schizo, and then she calms them down, and over time she gets them well enough to be adopted out. And maybe I was a little bit like that, just on a weird vibration.
Is your calm, your peace.
Yeah, and so when she's
good.
in the bed and I'm in the bed, I can sleep now, and so that's a beautiful thing.
This is my kind of vibe, though. I need to come hang out with her. All the dogs.
Yeah.
All my dogs. It'll just be like a huge puppy farm.
We could take them on a walk into the national forest.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. We would love to have you. I'm sure she would love to have you.
Mine's going to be more like a run. My dogs are crazy.
So we let a couple off leash. Couples have to stay on because you can't control them. But we call it like a circus. Because it's
yes. You should see
do.
me trying to walk mine at night on the street.
7 dogs.
Did you get
7
attacked?
dogs.
You got attacked not that long ago.
I did get attacked.
What happened? Tell
Dog
me.
bit me.
Oh,
I got
what?
this lovely scar. But Doc is a shit, and he put my tattoo back together, so you can't really tell.
Nice.
But I took some stitches on both sides. It was a good time. This dog tried to attack my dog, and it wasn't happening. Mommy mode kicked in, and I picked up my dog, and that dog attacked me.
Oh
and
my God.
I was about to kill that dog, and it was a huge
So it was
mess.
off leash then?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
great time.
That's the problem.
It was a pretty sweet
Yeah.
cut. I sent it to Tisha. My arm was bleeding everywhere, and she's panicking.
You're like, we have a problem.
It was a very dramatic situation. We went to the doctor, and he stitched me right up.
Why do you have so many dogs?
I just love dogs. I love animals.
Yeah, ask her how many cats she has too.
I have
What
2
else?
cats.
I thought you had 3.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I got 2 cats. We rescued one from Dubai, and then his name is Dubai. And we rescued one from Kauai. Her name is Kauai. But then I have 7 dogs. I actually only had 6 dogs. But I went to the grocery store 2 months ago at 9:30 at night. I was really craving graham crackers. And I ended up getting out of bed, went to the grocery store, and I came home with a dog and graham crackers.
How did you get a dog?
This girl was walking through the store with this dog. He had a collar embedded in his neck. He had a big old cyst on his back leg. He was walking with his head crooked. You could tell he had an ear infection. He was just a mess, and she said it was her friend's dog. They were going to kill it. She needed somebody to take the dog. She took it from them, but she couldn't take it home in her current situation. So she needed somebody to take the dog for at least the night until the shelter is open the next morning. So she was walking around the grocery store.
Jeez.
And she looked a hot mess. And it was just, I felt bad for this dog. And I was like, okay, I can't leave this dog in this situation. And she said he's terrible with kids, terrible with dogs, terrible with cats. Took him home, and he's definitely a puppy, but he is so good with kids. He actually loves my cats. He tries to hump them. So he's not bad with them.
Okay.
He gets along well with all my dogs that I've introduced him to. I have one dog that has little man syndrome, so I won't put them together.
That's what we have. Our little Winston.
Yeah.
He's like so tiny, but bark like he thinks he's a giant. And
So I was initially just gonna like foster him, get him better, and then adopt him out. But he's become my buddy. Like he's got everything down now. He sits, lays, shakes, does belly rubs. He'll do his little army crawl. I just keep teaching him things. If I tell him to stay, he stays in certain areas, and I can walk off and then come back, and he's still in that same area. So, I mean, especially now with me having an injury right now, I mean, he's my walking buddy. The other ones, they have their certain lengths that they can go just given their breeds and stuff, and if they get tired or whatnot, or their health conditions, but he goes a lot further, so he just became my bud, so he worked his way in for a permanent home.
If you're good.
I don't think Raquel can foster dogs. She'll end up keeping like 30. She'll build a farm and keep them all.
Basically.
Yeah. Every dog we get, we consider, is this going to be the last one that we just adopt? But if we adopt one, then we would stop fostering them, because then 5 would be too many in our opinion. But you have 7, so then
there's never too many. I think my problem is, okay, I'm getting older. I still have time in fighting, but I also want kids. But I just don't want to take the time off to have kids. So I think I just when I get baby fever, I just get another dog.
Yeah.
There's the real answer.
Well, I think you guys have something in common, but that's and what I was saying earlier about wanting to take care of dogs, like when we were not quite as successful as we are, is just that intention was there, and now we're doing it, and that's a beautiful thing. Is part of the success or whatever is having that vision of where you want to be in the future. And I have these vision boards of what I want. I have Tony Ferguson on there, and we had sponsored him earlier this year, and he messaged me the other day. He saw a SHEATH sticker on the back of a bumper of a car in LA traffic, and he was like, yo, he's like, he sends everything when he texts, it's like letters, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but he says champ shit only, but
yeah,
but that's not what I'm saying. Like, it's like acronyms or whatever. Like, that's pretty cool to have Tony Ferguson. He's like, anyways, he's cool. That's cool, right? Because he's kind of crazy.
That's really cool to have your sticker in LA. Like, man, you made it all the way across the country. And
those come, and we're the only distribution point. I actually ship out of this house. We ship 20% of the total orders, but we're the only ones that put stickers in the orders, and so whatever, that one came from us, so that's cool. And we have 4 distribution centers in the US and 1 in Canada, and we're kind of consolidating things right now with COVID. Shit went a little haywire. We were actually going to be expanding to Europe. We had a distribution center there lined up, and when it hit, we were like, let's bring everything back home, because we had professional warehouses doing the orders, but bring it home. And it was a beautiful thing because our warehouse got shut down, but because of my genius foresight, and it was just luck really, but we were able to keep orders being fulfilled during a month-long stretch of a transition from one warehouse to another. It got bought out, and it was this craziness, but that's life, that's business.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think fighting is, I love it because it's such a metaphor for life, but at the ultimate, you're getting in a cage, you're risking it all, and you got to prepare for that moment, and that could be a job interview or whatever, audition, whatever it is, something you're doing, all the work you guys put into training to get to that moment. If people work that hard at anything, I feel like they would excel at whatever they choose, Yeah. And you might lose, because sometimes you lose, but then that's
how you bounce back.
Yeah.
Do you give up when you lose and you're knocked down, or do you find the motivation, you find the positive out of it, and where do you want to go from that? So it's how well do you bounce back? So many people quit at their first loss. That's one of the principles, or not principles, but it's one of the telltale signs of somebody that doesn't have what it takes, because you gotta
try again, because the universe is going to challenge you. You're not going to just walk through life,
No.
walk through all your opponents.
Life is always going to throw curveballs,
Yeah.
regardless of what that looks like. Some good, some bad.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, and so when it's good, feel appreciative of it, because it may not last, or and I try to not. I feel like there's a lot of woo-woo in life, kind of mystical energies and stuff, and if you take things for granted, they might be taken away from you. And appreciate what you have, you might get more. Is kind of what I try to keep in mind, as always. And the mind is everything, and so even when it's bad,
even if you don't have everything, I mean, some people, like, they have such high expectations in life or these big dreams, and sometimes that don't always work out. But then you can come across people who don't have, like, they're not in an ideal situation that most people would even see as ideal, but they're so grateful and just so blessed. I mean, it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
How are you going to look at things?
If wherever you are, you should be appreciative of what you have. If you're, healthy and have the mind to think, and it's only going to make your life better thinking positive. In my experience, negative brings negative, positive brings back positive.
For sure.
And when you're in a negative, I always tend to think, okay, it's going to get better now, because I know this sucks. I'm in it and this is shitty, but I know how life goes, and it goes up and down. And when I'm down, it's going to come back up. When I'm up, maybe it stays up. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But I think the psychology of fighting, I think Raquel could tell you the best, because she worked with a couple sports psychologists, was even just talking about the fight, there's a way to do it to where you don't get more anxious about it.
There's different words that can trigger certain reactions, certain emotions, whether it can be positive or negative. So it's like, it's a huge communication thing. Like, how do you kind of communicate with, like, if I was to communicate with my coaches, how would I communicate with them as far as what's going to get me motivated and what's going to get me excited for the fight, as opposed to what's going to actually, they might think that they're trying to motivate me with something, but what can actually be making me anxious and nervous about things. And then, a lot of people, even with the whole idea of leading up to anything, I mean, your body's going to react to things regardless. So if you're preparing for a fight and you're going to make that walk out to the octagon, that's one of the scariest things to ever go through. I mean, it's something that I have yet to put into words. Just as soon as those curtain doors open, you see all those people, and then the idea of taking that walk, and you're getting locked into an octagon with somebody else who, I mean, you guys have the same intentions towards each other. And anything can happen in there. But it's just like, how do you process those nerves? And a lot of people, when they start feeling nervous, they right away take it to a negative place, and then they become anxious, and then it just spirals down the rabbit hole from there. And for me, I like to take the nerves and kind of relate them to my body saying that it's prepared. But it's not always that easy. You know what I mean? It's how you're going to go through it. And Juan's been with me to where there's been times we're getting ready to walk out to the cage. We're waiting for the music to play. And I'm like, can we walk out this exit door? Just because, I mean, it can play such a huge part. But, I mean, a lot of people ask, they're just, what is fighting and stuff? And, I mean, I like to say fighting is seriously like 10% of it, but it's 90% mental. Like, even though fighting is so physical, it really is. You can win the fight before you even go in there. It's where your mind is going to be at. And then you go out there and you just perform, and your body flows and goes into the state. Or if you're doing all the crazy things inside your mind and you're kind of questioning things or freaking out a little bit too much, then all of a sudden it's going to play a part in how you're breathing, how fast your body's going to react. If you're going to, like, not be able to breathe while you're in there and actually recover in between rounds, if you're not going to be in a flow state. I mean, there's so much that goes into it.
So I want to talk about that. Because that's the fascinating part of consciousness, is being in that flow state. And you've been in enough fights. I imagine you've been in it and out of it. And
yeah.
So,
especially multiple times within the recent years. Like, I mean, I've gone back and forth within the recent years, and some of it was like walking in there with injury and different things behind the scenes. And then trying to just go in there because mentally I wanted to be somewhere. Physically I wasn't ready. Or physically it felt like I was ready, but then mentally I wasn't ready. Like I've had a battle within the recent years of lining up the two to feel in that flow state and just going out there and feeling like myself and being able to perform.
It's definitely one of the most complicated things because I've seen that. I've seen Raquel be physically ill but mentally ready to fight when she fought Gazzangano. And Raquel's always ready to fight, even when she shouldn't have took that fight. And she was vomiting, and she got we think salmonella poisoning. And then it sucked to find out, talking to the sports psychologist, how much of an influence I have and how I can actually tilt the fight in the bad way. And I own that I screwed up when she fought Leslie Smith because I thought the right thing was to get her fired up and pissed off, so I slapped her right before she walked out. And man, I mean, she was so angry that first round, and it was awesome, but she had the worst adrenaline dump. So round 2 and 3,
Couldn't even function.
Couldn't move,
like, it was
flat-footed.
like you wanted to pick up your arms, but no energy, no nothing, because it was just like a complete dump. And it's frustrating because your mind tells you one thing, but then your body's reacting a completely different way. And I mean, you can even see it as a spectator watching other fights. And, that's where it gets frustrating too, when people are actually commentating on the fights, because then they're like, in certain moments, they're like, oh, this person's injured. Oh, these people look exhausted. Oh, that they have something. But being an actual athlete and going through all the different phases in there and seeing it, like, there's just different points of reaction in there. And there's some things that you may not even know what led into that fight or why people aren't performing a certain way. I mean, I like the iceberg effect. We've talked about it so many times. I mean, when you're sitting there, it's like, okay, you're driving through the water, you can see the top of the iceberg, but you cannot see all what's underneath. And so it's the same thing with fighting in that perspective. Like, you don't see what goes in to everything behind the scenes, mentally, physically, emotionally.
You see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, you just see the tip of the iceberg, which is the fight that everybody sees, and that's what you get judged most off of.
Yeah.
But they have no clue what everything else is. And then it's just like, when the true fans actually want to listen and understand and see or understand what we're going through, I mean, there's so much more to it. And that's the cool part about MMA, is everybody has a completely different story. Everybody has a completely different perspective. And I mean, I don't think there's one person to ever walk into the octagon 100% healthy at all, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally. And so it's just, I mean, it's a really unique thing.
I love it. I'm thinking of like Anderson Silva and Michael Jordan at the same time. Sometimes I think two things at the same time, but like the amount, like Anderson seemed to be in the zone. Like he would be moving in slow motion, like the Matrix and shit. And that's where every fighter, I imagine, wants to be mentally, when you go in and just, they move and you see it coming a mile away and you're like, oh my God, he was like the master of that, right? And Jordan, he has this new documentary on Netflix. Yeah. Did you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard a lot about it.
So good.
I love Jordan growing up. Like,
me too.
Big thing. But everybody that I've talked to that's watched that, they said it's going to completely change your perspective.
They say he's an asshole. I look at him as a competitor with that fucking spirit that it takes to become what he became.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah. It's something to behold. And he got in the zone, obviously. And, I've read books about it, becoming Superman or something. And it obviously it's the preparation and the muscle memory of it all. That's coming in with, just like the proper mind state. I played basketball my whole life. And
me too.
Yeah?
What position did you play?
I guess like point or shooting guard.
Yeah, I was big on shooting guard.
Yeah, probably same. I tried to be point, but I was probably more the shooting guard. And I was shoot like the short 17 jumper, and I've gotten better at like taking it to the hole. I always used to just over whatever, and I couldn't make layups because I'd be so excited, and like brick.
Too much energy. Yeah.
Now I have.
We always had plays for me where they would set all the screens, and I was always shooting the threes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The three. My arms weren't strong enough for whatever reason.
It was funny because what was it, 3 years ago when I went through wrist surgery and shoulder surgery. My biggest thing coming back, because we would always like go and play basketball just to cut some weight or have some fun interacting as a team and stuff. And so when I was going through recovery for my wrist surgery, I was like, Doc, my wrist does not work. And he's like, what do you mean? Can't you punch? I'm like, I can't shoot hoops. I don't have the flick. And he's like, you're not a basketball player. And I'm like, I will always be a basketball player. I need the flick back. And then I couldn't even throw, like with my shoulder. I was like, Doc, this recovery is not going well. And he's all like, well, we're still a little behind, but what's the problem? I'm like, I can't come back here. And he's like, you don't punch like that. I'm like, no, but I throw a ball from here. Like, I need this back.
Yeah.
He's like, this is very confusing. Like, what do you want in life? I'm like,
I want it all.
All of it.
Yes.
Give it back.
I injured my shoulder snowboarding a couple years ago, and it's finally back to normal where I guess I could, do whatever you were just doing with your like throwing arm type stuff. I'm making sure this is still got enough battery and everything. I think we're good. The flow state. I was telling the story recently about high school basketball on the court. The first time I get in the game, first game my dad comes to, and all I can think is my dad's watching me, and that's not good when you're trying to do something. And it sucked. It was horrible. I cried the last time I brought it up. I'm not going to cry this time, but it was, and that always happened. Like that. They're watching me. They're gonna laugh at me. I'm not gonna be good enough. That fucks the whole shit up. You can't perform like that.
Yeah, you spread yourself too thin. You're thinking about one too many things instead of the actual. I've
gotten older and don't play as much as I used to. Unfortunately, I love that game, and it's like my happy place. If just going around and shooting around by myself on the court that I did for 1,000 hours when I was a teenager.
Tisha actually bought me a hoop during quarantine. And she was like, I thought you should get back to your roots here. And so she bought me a hoop. And there were so many days that I just sat out there shooting. And it was amazing how it just you lose track of time. Like one night I was out there and she's like, you ever coming in? I'm like, what time is it? 3 hours had passed. And it just felt like I was out there for 45 minutes just shooting around. But it's like just a different feeling, different calm when you center yourself in that and you're kind of lost in your own world. I think it kind of goes to fighting too. Like how you were saying, I mean, with the situation with your dad and like having your mind all these different places, it can be the same thing with fighting. I've gone through phases to where I've been in the best place mentally, physically, and emotionally, and I was surrounded. I think a lot of it has to do with your surroundings too. So I was surrounded with the right people, and it was just, it was a small circle. Everything was great. The support was in all the right directions. But that's what gets hard when you become successful. And then so many people want in the mix, and you get so many hands in the pot. And then naturally, as a human being, I mean, your brain, you can get an opinion from here and from here and here, and then you just start thinking about it all. And it's just like you kind of lose sight of everything, and then you're spread so thin that like, where is your actual flow at?
Yeah, it throws you off your energy.
Yeah, and then that's when it's like, okay, how are you going to become successful again? Or how are you going to make yourself just happy in general? And I had to do that and just kind of like reset and step back and like see what that was going to look like for me.
Like cut some people out maybe and be a little selective with your circle.
Sometimes you got to be selfish, but it's not a bad thing. If it's going to center you happy, because I mean, you got to be happy before you can make anybody else happy. And so being an athlete like that, you got to be selfish sometimes. And that was one thing that was really hard for me, was to learn to be selfish. Everybody's like, you're way too humble as a fighter, and then you're not selfish enough. And when I learned that, like, I will forever be humble. That's in my DNA. But as far as being selfish, like, I've learned how to put those boundaries up. And man, what it does for you just as an individual, like, I feel so much better. And now I can see from different angles on how thin I was spreading myself. And I'm like, wow, like, I just actually feel recharged for once.
Yeah, I think when you make something the ultimate thing, it's always a recipe for disaster, because, you spread yourself out too thin. You start to think outcome, right? And we know how bad that is to think about the outcome. But anything in life, it becomes the ultimate thing.
What do you mean it's bad to think about the outcome?
Yeah, well, I mean, Raquel could probably go into that better because she had a little more conversation.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, I think it's about effort. So, I coach high school gymnastics, and what I always tell them, it's not about the outcome. Like, I don't care if you get first place as opposed to if you get last place in this competition, but it's about maximum effort. Because I feel like if you go out there, and the same thing with me, if I go out there and I put my maximum effort into a fight, but it just happens to not be my night and I'm not the one that gets my hand raised, I can't be disappointed. Like, there's absolutely nothing to be disappointed in that aspect, because I went out there and absolutely gave it my best, but it just wasn't my night. And then those are things that you can take back and you can continue to grow, but you have a proud feeling instead of being knocked completely down because the only thing that you were focused on was getting your hand raised. And then at the end of the night, you didn't perform at all, but then you also didn't get your hand raised. So now overall, it's just a huge disappointment. So I think it's important to focus on maximum effort as opposed to winning and losing, because regardless, winning and losing, one of them's going to happen. But when you're sitting here focusing on maximum effort, you naturally get into a state to where all of a sudden you're going to perform at your best. And then most likely that outcome you want is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then like I said, you're still proud at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people, you hear fighters talk about getting their hand being raised, visualizing that. So you're saying just what does visualizing maximum effort mean?
I think a lot of people focus on, it's like, I mean, he's even said it to me, visualize your hand getting raised. My cousin says it to me, visualize 1,000 times your hand getting raised. Well, that's one thing throughout the night, but it's like, what's in between to get to that? So for me, like, I like to visualize like a start to finish. I like to visualize what I'm doing when I get there. And it's like how I'm going to warm up, how I'm going to feel, how I want my body to feel. And then I'm going to visualize that walk out to the octagon. I'm going to visualize like taking in the crowd experience. And then I'm just going to visualize being in there, whether I had an 8-week camp, a 3-week camp, whatever it is. But I like to visualize all that work I put in, the different combinations, the different exertion points that I did, that all of a sudden lead to this outcome. And so for me, like, my visualization is just like a series of everything as opposed to one thing of just getting my hand raised.
That makes more sense. I just hear, the final outcome. That's all. And even Henry Cejudo, well, he was talking about on Rogan how he reenacts the whole thing to get that level of maybe comfort of mental.
It's important. I mean, we
done it a couple times.
Yeah,
I think it worked. Yeah.
We've had moments to where even if it's just a spar session at the gym, they'll send me into the back room and
do the walkout,
and then
with the music.
They'll play my song. I have to do the walkout, and even if it's just the coaches cheering for me, like, you got to get used to that walkout.
I like that.
The seconds it takes, the minutes it takes, and then you're getting the Vaseline, and then you're getting your water. They're giving you your mouth guard. You get in there. They want me to take my lap because that's what I naturally do when I get into the octagon. And then they do like a little quick introduction, and then all of a sudden me and my sparring partner are just doing what we do every single time. But then we get that minute in between the rounds, and it's like, okay, like, how are you going to feel in between the rounds? Do you want a stool this time? Do you not want to sit? What do you want in a fight? And like, we basically build a routine of what we're going to go through. So ultimately, when fight night comes, we've been through it 1,000 times at the gym already. That is just another night in the office, like, truly.
No, that's what I would think you would work the best, like, because then it's just muscle memory. You don't even have to think. You can get into that flow state.
Yeah, I think the best athletes have like the best nights. When they interview, I'm like, man, why did you do so well today? Whatever, catching the ball or whatever. And they always have to say the same thing in the interview. Like, man, I just went in there and my body took over. And that's that flow state where it's, you really didn't have any external things pulling you away and spreading yourself out too thin. You're just doing what you're in there, doing what you love to do.
What does it feel like to you, Raquel, when you're in that state?
My flow state?
Yeah.
It's just cool. I mean, I can probably say, so my last fight was, I was definitely in a flow state, and afterwards, like, it was just fun. Like, leading up to the fight week was extremely fun. I embraced every moment of it. I was laughing, just feeling grateful, feeling blessed throughout it all, just taking it all in instead of being so stressed out and so worked up the whole time. And then like, oh my gosh, I got to cut this weight and it's just going to be stressful. And, I got a really scary phone call the day of weight cut. Actually, like, as soon as I stepped into my little weight cutting room to start, my phone rang and I got a scary call from the doctor that I ended up having to deal with the following week when I got home. But it was just like, okay, like, even with that, like, everything was so positive, and I could have took that moment and just broke, but it was just like, there's nothing. Like, I'm here in this moment. Like, I have these opportunities, and like, if today was my last day, like, how am I going to take it all in? So I just continued to go on, and, I mean, just doing that and having fun with it all, embracing all those moments. When I went out that night into the octagon, I mean, it was fun. Just, that's all I can say. It was just genuinely fun. I mean, I was doing exactly what I love. My body was just definitely flowing.
Yeah.
I mean, things to go back and watch it was just like, man, I can't tell you like the last time that I actually wanted to let my hands go. I mean, my last fight was a lot of clench just because it was working on her. Like, she didn't adjust at all, so I stayed there. But just to like consistently stay going and pushing forward and doing the things that like I've been wanting to do for so long, but I wanted it so bad and was doing all the wrong things, to where when this time I just had fun and let it flow in there. I mean, overall, it was super rewarding. It was fun. It's a fun fight to talk about. It's as opposed to those ones that like I can look back on and I'm just like super frustrated, or I can't even remember what happened because the emotions just got the best of me.
Can you carry that forward, you know, like what you learned from this last fight to, I mean, you know, to your next fight? Do you think that's something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely, me and my head coach, we were talking about it, and it was just like, you know, I think also with the fact of just getting older, being in this sport for almost 13 years now, I mean, there's a shift. Like, it's like, I'm here, this is what I'm doing. There's nobody who comes to my house every single day and drags me out of bed. Like, I wake up, I choose to put myself through this. I travel to Denver 3 days a week, so I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hitting the road and training all day and doing the things, and like, that's something that comes within me. So it's just like, you know, for me, I guess my mental state just kind of shifted a lot, and some sense of maturity hit in there about the fact that like the answers don't come from a sports psychologist for me, and they don't come in a book. Like, I have them within myself. It's just about getting out of my own way and having fun with it. Like, that was my biggest thing. I hit a point to where I wasn't having fun. So I think that was the big shift in my last fight. Like, I genuinely, they called me. I did a crash camp of 4 weeks. You know, I actually asked to fight at 145 pounds because, like I said, I was in quarantine. I was living life. I was happy. But then that was the next challenge. I was like, you know what? She didn't want to. And I was like, screw it. Like, I can make the weight. So it was a good challenge, but I had fun through it. I didn't make it a stressful event like I used to in the past. Like, for some reason, I would get in my own way and make everything really stressful. And then the coaches were kind of trying to pull me out of that, or there were certain words that would trigger me. And I learned how to, like, reset. And it's not about what he says or whatever. Like, it's just,
If he slaps you or something?
yeah, it's not about any of that. Like, all right, thanks.
Well, we're actually about to do a sober October, and so that's going to be fun.
No smoke?
Nope, no smoke, no drink. A lot of healthy, you know, the stuff that I've been doing by itself, the breathing, the ice baths. I'm going to exercise, read, fast. I'm going to fast. Have you ever fasted?
I have.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I mean, I guess you do that to cut weight.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of fasting. People take it to different extremes and stuff. So, I mean, obviously being a professional athlete, like, we have to fuel our body a certain way. So I can't just go on like this juicing and everything else that everybody does and whatnot. But I mean, there's a way to detox and to lower the portions and stuff. There has been different points where when I did go through my surgeries, my body changed a lot under the anesthesia. My hormones really shifted, and then I developed a thyroid issue. So, I mean, I shot up to my heaviest I've ever been. We couldn't figure out my body for nothing. Like, the diets weren't working. I tried different forms of fasting. I tried, like, everything you think of. I even went keto, and I felt like my brain was just going to completely shut down. Like, I mean, different things work for different people. So it's just...
Yeah, I'm constantly like messing around with these types of things, and I find that it sharpens the mind significantly when you're fasting, and I guess that would make sense because if you needed food.
You know what I actually like? It's tough because like I said, I mean, I've grown up, I've been hunting ever since I was 7 and whatnot, but my last camp, I actually did, I told Tisha, I was like, you know what, let's just try it. But I went vegetarian for a month, and everybody was like, oh, as an athlete, like, you can't be going vegetarian. You need this, you need that. Like, there's stuff that comes out of meat that you can't get and whatnot. And it was just like, you know, I mean, having the knowledge and having people surrounding me who have the knowledge, I felt phenomenal being vegetarian. Like, my energy was incredible. My strength, like, everything that everybody said was gonna deplete just increased for me. But then I just had a really hard time because I really miss like bacon and steak. And so it was tough for me. But like, honestly, I wouldn't mind just kind of going through different waves of it. Yeah. And kind of going back to that.
I felt great. I tried to do it at the beginning of the year. And at around the same time, I had taken an allergy test. And I got the results about 10 days after I'd gone vegetarian coming to find out I was allergic to like garbanzo beans, which is in like everything.
Like everything.
And like a lot of fruit and vegetables. It was really weird. Like lemon, coconut is another big part of a vegetarian diet. So I literally can't be a vegetarian because I'm allergic to it. But I felt lighter. I felt kind of swifter in a way for those few days and before I started breaking out.
Like I felt like I slept phenomenal, and then I just felt like my energy, like my trainings, like usually by the end of 2 hours, because I put in pretty intense work, I'm done. I was just like, this is the end of training, like let's keep going. My coach was like, go drink some water and eat. I'm like, I still have energy for days. So then I would like jump on the bike and do more, because I honestly just felt like I can keep going. And by the time the end of the week hit, I actually wasn't even tired. And normally we go like a 2-2-1 2-2 phase for training, so it's 2 a days on Monday and Tuesday, 1 training on Wednesday, and then 2 Thursday and Friday, and then I have Saturday and Sunday off. But I was turning like those days into like all 2s and sometimes 3s, and then on Saturday I was like hiking all crazy just because it was.
And that was before this last fight.
Yeah, and it was just doing some
things.
vegetarian stuff.
Like notes. Because it's constant progression, the constant improvement over time is what we're doing.
I felt like the inflammation was a lot better. But we were talking about diet on the way up here to come see you. But I just didn't, one thing that I was struggling with was like, because in the vegetarian diet, like a lot of it, like proteins and fats are kind of the same source. So it was just like, how do I get enough protein without getting too much fat? Was my thing on certain things that like where I just wanted straight protein. I felt like for my body type, I was still getting too much fats.
Yeah.
So that's where it was just like, okay, you know how when you try something new, it can either be positive and then all of a sudden it like plummets. Like I was scared to kind of just all of a sudden plummet and throw on all this weight that then I was going to have to take time to turn around and get off, or I was going to lose like too much muscle mass.
Yeah, it's different body types require different kind of things. And I think, like you said, you start something, it's working great. I'm like, oh, I found the answer. And then it stops working. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, because typically that's how, well, like with basketball, for instance, it's like a weird analogy, but sometimes one night I'd just be hitting everything. And I'd be like, you just got to, your finger, just the right, this amount of pressure. And I got it. From now on, I'm going to make every shot. And then tomorrow comes and something else or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how diets are, I think, also. I mean, then it's hard to sustain.
It constantly changes. And then, too, I mean, this guy knows when you're putting your body through, when you are so used to different foods all throughout your life, and then all of a sudden you take it away. And even though dieting for us is like a way of life, and people see diet as like, oh, you got to eat a salad in small portions in this, like, I mean, it's not true. Like, for me, it's not even dieting. It's just kind of clean eating. But the thing is like, when I've lived my life this long and my body fluctuates so much that like it just changes. And especially being a female athlete, I mean, my hormones are consistently changing. It gets harder. Your body changes every 7 years and stuff. And so I've always had like a really muscular lower body. And then, I mean, there's been points that I've cut weight and now all of a sudden my weight's going to different places. So my weight's going in my legs or my lower body and not in my upper body anymore. Or sometimes I'll cut weight and it's all just in my core. And the human body is absolutely insane, but it's also super frustrating when you're trying to dial in and find the right diet, the right macros, and the different things. And then also, I mean, it's a huge discipline mentally, because it's just like, I can have this sugar, and this guy should know. I mean, he was like, I just want a piece of candy, and then before you know it, he eats like 3 bags.
Yeah, I think the craziest part when I did my bodybuilding show was I just wanted a banana. And people were like, eat a banana, it's healthy, it's good for you. And I'm like, no, I can't, it's got too much sugar. Like, that was a struggle. I think the diet I did for bodybuilding might have been harder than fasting, because, you know, I had to really force myself to eat that fish, eat the broccoli, get the fiber, and like she said, get the protein that didn't come with the fast. I was like, crap, I can only have egg whites. You know, that was really tough. But, you know, talking about how your body changes, you can develop an allergy at any time. You know, like, people don't understand that. Like, maybe when you were a kid, you weren't allergic to potatoes, but all of a sudden as an adult, boom, you're allergic to potatoes.
Shoot, 2 years ago I had an allergy to coffee. Now look, we're having a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we just had some Black Rifle coffee. Shout out to the military. You're pro-military-ish.
Yeah.
Seems like sometimes
Yeah.
I see in your posts. You're
My family, my dad was in the military, my uncle was in the majority of my family, like military, and then I've worked with a lot of military companies. One of my coaches, well, actually two of my coaches were the WCAP program on Fort Carson. So I worked with a lot of WCAP athletes and just being sponsored by Grunt Style and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's the world-class athlete program. It's like the Army sports. So, like, there's an Army WCAP Taekwondo team, boxing,
Ooh.
and
wrestling.
then go to the
yeah.
Olympics and stuff.
Yeah. So
Oh, nice.
we've been fortunate to be in this town to have such great places and facilities to train, and we got to go to the OTC and train, go on the Army base.
Yeah, 5 different military bases
Yeah.
within, driving distance.
And then Raquel's helped me with a couple of the Army combatives tournaments, show up, help wrap hands, things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a blessing, you know. I mean, even though I can't always compete, and when I had my layoff going through my surgeries, like I had the opportunity to actually travel around and do an MMA military tour. So we went to like Curacao, Turkey, Honduras, Guantanamo Bay,
Whoa.
and we just we went to all the different military bases and we taught stuff and interacted with all the soldiers and
The
everything.
combatives training
Yeah,
lessons.
I absolutely love doing that. You know, I mean,
I got to do that. I went through combatives when I was in the military, and that was one of the fun parts of PE or PT sometimes. And I got certified. I would have liked to have done it more, but I practiced kind of also on the side and went to different schools from time to time. But that's, the best form of fighting, jiu-jitsu intertwined with the other martial arts.
it's just fun for me interacting with all the soldiers and doing that stuff. Especially everybody who's on like tours and stuff and away from their families, and they can have something to look forward to.
Hell yeah.
And then, we're appreciative of the service for our country and the different things. And so, I mean, it's an overall cool interaction to just interact with all.
We appreciate it. I was in Iraq, and we had a couple of rappers come and do a show, and I forgot his name, but it was nice of them to do, and we appreciate it, because it's like, you're in a war, so any kind of entertainment is a blessing.
Oh yeah.
And you guys that's a sacrifice for you. It's a risk. You're like, don't know exactly what you're getting into, and so that's got to be a little bit scary, but you did rewarding at the same time, like you said.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then you just meet cool people from all over, and
we went all over the place a little bit. You were talking about the psychology of going into the ring and stuff, and we'll wrap it up relatively soon, but Cowboy's been talking a lot about that in a lot of his posts, and so he's finally, I think he's like the main person that even addresses it when you guys all deal with it. And I'll just give a shout out to Cowboy. We love Cowboy. You're kind of friends with him, right?
yeah.
I met him through Tisha. I mean, technically through a post that he had commented on and whatnot. And
Yeah, he's our buddy. We've hung out. We went to his first son's baby shower, and I mean, we all support each other as far as fighting and stuff and whatnot. And Colorado.
Yeah,
So.
it's been cool working with him. He's been able to, and like, it just gives our brand a level of credibility. And like, it started with Tisha, him, you. We have so many people now. It's
awesome to watch you guys grow.
Yeah.
I remember when it was just like, hey, here's this company and wants to kind of get into like the fight world, and now all of a sudden, I mean, you have so many different athletes who you're working with, and your material is phenomenal. Like, honestly, I told you earlier when I arrived here, I mean, I live in your shirts. Just they're extremely comfortable, whether I'm going out on hikes, whether I'm laying around, whether I'm training in the gym, or whatever it is. I mean, honestly, the material is extremely comfortable. I've told so many people, or they're just like, they'll come up and hug me and they can feel the material and they're like, oh my goodness, what is this shirt? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's kind of my favorite here. It honestly is a comfortable like material and product that you guys are truly producing.
Nice to know. The shirts are amazing, and that was kind of and we're talking about Sheath, and I'm sorry, we'll just do it for just a second. But how did you like all of a sudden come up with Sheath? Like, what made you want to develop underwear? Like, did it come from you being in the military and just super uncomfortable, and you're like, I need something else for this, or like, what was the deal? Literally in Iraq, it's hotter than the devil's balls. It was 2008 in the summer in Iraq. And this was my second tour. I was the NCOIC. That means I was the non-commissioned officer in charge, sergeant, at a team of 5. We had our own little area of operation. No, see, both of us got
You guys are so
caught.
unprofessional
I know.
right now. Oh my gosh.
And no problem. He just got a call. I'm sure it's... Oh, we'll be wrapping it up. Tisha Torres is calling, but we're gonna call her right back. Shout out Tisha. But yeah, it was in Iraq. It's very hot, and I had been Army issued underwear, which is just like the run of the mill kind of whitey tighties. They were old. A lot of guys don't care about underwear. I didn't care about underwear, so I'm wearing just what I had, which were they wear them until they fall apart.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's very uncomfortable, and so uncomfortable like that I had like this epiphany that if my balls weren't sticking to my leg right now, that I would be much more comfortable. And so I just had the epiphany of this pouch, and I literally had some made while I was out there. I have pictures of like the prototype that I made in Iraq, and it was just for me. But I did tell people, and they were like, yeah. And so after a few years of people telling me it was a good idea, and my brother really pushing the issue, we're going to wrap it up in like 2 seconds. But we did a Kickstarter, Well, and actually we launched it before we did a Kickstarter, and that was a total failure. It set us back 3 years because I went with this production company that I don't want to even blame them. I'll blame myself. I messed up the production. And here's a lesson in success. I could, like most people, would give up right there. I spent all my money on this first production. It was a total bomb. I couldn't sell it. But 3 years later, we relaunched. And since then, we have doubled in size annually. And just getting to do what I'd like working with fighters. I have a guy that comes here once a week to train me in martial and like jiu-jitsu and boxing. Shout out Victory MMA. Gilbert? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of his students, Dylan King. He comes out, and I was going to his gym, but since I moved out here, I have them come out to me, which is a privilege. Shout out.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's kind of cool how it all developed and stuff. And, being an athlete and stuff, and it's like I wear yoga pants training and whatnot, or the days that I would wear actual just like MMA shorts to do kickboxing or the different things. Then all of a sudden I would have like spandex underneath those, and then you have your spandex riding all over the place. So in between rounds, I'm like constantly adjusting everything. And, you gave me all the different styles of the women's underwear. So there's like the female boxers, and then the boy shorts, and then the bikini ones. And they're phenomenal to actually train in. Like, I love them. And so it's just like less layers to even wear, and just the material that goes through it. You want to talk about just feeling light and everything just being like, I don't know.
You're too kind.
Breathable, like you guys say.
Yeah.
Like, it really just is. And so, I've had so many people in there. I've had other people reach out to me, and, there's thicker people, and they're like, do they have big people sizes? And just all the different things. And it's just like, yeah, like check it out, see what works for you and the different things. But I think it's cool. You have a vision and you ran with it, and it is where it is now, and it's only going to continue to go up from here.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. Thank you for driving up here and spending time with me here. And Juan, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's kind of like a dream come true to be able to do this with like you and the other guys that I get to hang out with from time to time. It's a blessing, truly blessed.
It's been great, man. Have us back.
Yes. And, do you want to, what do you have coming up?
So I was originally supposed to fight Island October 17th, but I just had to pull from that last week. I currently have an injury going on.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've had injuries in the past. I've fought through some crazy stuff. There's some injuries that I should never fought through.
Yeah.
But like that level of maturity
That's
we were
smart.
talking.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that level of maturity that we were talking about earlier that just kind of hit. I mean, it's the same thing. I still have years in the sport, and if I want the
Absolutely.
longevity of it, I need to take the time right now. So I'm actually listening to the doctor. I pulled, and
I wish more fighters would do that, honestly.
Yeah.
Some people fight too much. You let your body heal, because when you come back, you're going to be 100% and ready to rock and roll.
So right now I got 6 weeks off at the minimum. So we'll see what the results look like after that, and then hoping to get back out there. So
thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Raquel Pennington, Juan Gonzalez joining us. And go to sheathunderwear.com. You know what to do there. Buy some underwear. Okay, we will see you next time.